welcome to the Pride of Detroit podcast, emergency Chris Spielman edition. We had to congregate a day early in this week to talk about some big news regarding the Lions front office and what's going on there. But before we get into all that, let me introduce myself. My name is Jeremy Reisman. I'm the managing editor of Pride of Detroit. Normally your co-host of First Bite, which maybe this is, we'll see. But like I said, emergency podcast, we got to talk about some big news here. With me to discuss this big news, let's go right beneath me first. Mike Payton is here, POD_Payton on Twitter. He's a columnist and writer for us at Pride of Detroit. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm pleasantly surprised by today's developments, and we're going to get into that right in a second here. But let me also introduce our second co-host for this. Back on the podcast again, Jerry Mallory is here at Jerry Mallory NFL on Twitter. Jerry, nice to see you again, buddy.
Hey, I'm doing good, man. I'm thinking if Chris Spielman were to suit up, would he be the second best linebacker on our team right now?
He might not be second, and I think you know what I mean by that.
Oh wow! Shouts to Jamie Collins. Jeez.
Yeah, and I had to sport the pseudo Chris Spielman jersey here. Well, let's pretend it says Spielman on the back and not a certain other guy that is no longer on the team. But yeah, let's get into it. Chris Spielman, surprisingly kind of out of nowhere, named the special assistant to chairman and president and CEO, which I know we got two Office fans here. It sounds very much like a Dwight Schrute kind of title, but according to the press releases, according to some of the things he said, he's essentially going to be the right-hand man to both Sheila Ford Hamp and Rod Wood. He'll be, as he put it, their servant, which is kind of an interesting choice of words, but also more, and maybe more importantly, he'll be directly involved with the GM and head coaching searches. He's going to be involved in the interviews. He's going to go back and talk with the guys that have already been interviewed for the job. So let me throw it to you, Mike, first. Just overall reaction. When you heard that news, were you throwing a party? Were you like, okay, what does that mean? What was your just initial reactions to the news?
Well, my first thought was, man, this is huge, because one thing that we've had a problem with this Lions team is that they have nobody in the front office that has football knowledge. Rod Wood himself has come out and said, hey, I'm not a football guy. And Sheila Ford Hamp is, she's been around the Lions for much of her life, but how much does she really know about the inner workings of football and how to put together a football team? Not a whole lot. So to have someone in the front office that's able to ask the questions that Wood and Hamp wouldn't have asked, which is to me a really, really big deal, is huge. So yeah, this was a very, very good hire, and I think it was definitely the right thing to do.
How about you, Jerry?
I think I share a lot of the sentiments. My initial reaction was just surprise. It seems like when there's hires, there's some type of rumbling, you kind of think something's going on, maybe some type of rumor. And this just came out of nowhere. I'm sitting at home enjoying my day, and next thing you know, bam, Chris Spielman is on live press conference with the Lions. So I was very shocked, but pleasantly surprised. A lot of the same things Mike said, I feel the same as well. We think that he definitely knows more than probably Sheila and Rod. So it was a surprise, but from a pleasant standpoint.
Yeah. And I mean, you've probably heard me, if you're listening right now, kind of complain about how the current front office is set up, in that they don't have that football guy, that football knowledge person in the front office. And I wasn't necessarily excited by some of the things Sheila Ford Hamp had said in her introductory press conference. This washed a lot of those concerns over, because now not only do they have someone who's football experienced in there, but you can erase any questions right now that the people running this team don't care about their success, right? That's the thing that the Fords have always been complaining about. They don't care about the team's success. It's a money grab. They're hands-off owners. They just let other people run it and don't care. Well, now they've got someone in there who is very, very passionate about all things football and very passionate about the Detroit Lions. He admitted today, he's been following the team for years. He does stuff for DetroitLions.com. He does preseason games for the Detroit Lions. There's someone high-ranking in that organization that will do everything in his, everything within the realm of possibilities to make sure this team doesn't fail. And that's reassuring. I mean, it doesn't mean he's qualified for the job, doesn't mean he's going to make all the right moves, but he's someone who's not going to accept is not going to sit idly by while the franchise fails. He's gonna try his hardest to do something about it.
Yeah, I don't want to jump the gun, but if you look at that press conference and the passion, the energy that he brought, I'm just imagining that, and I'm picturing, Robert Saleh. I know he's not our coach, but just he could potentially be thinking about some of those clips of him and all the passion that he brings. I mean, that's potentially a combustible situation with those two guys. But just like you said, Jeremy, the passion that he brings to the game. Now, granted, some people may say, well, he's never worked in this realm before, but he still has more experience than Rod and Sheila. He's been around the game for a very long time. And so he's going to bring more than what they did. And I like this even over a consultant. A consultant kind of comes in and then they leave. He works for the Lions. So he has a vested interest for the whole process, not just recommending maybe some of his friends. So yeah, it should be interesting.
That's definitely an important distinction. He's a full-time employee. He will be around after the GM and the coaching search are around. He's essentially, Rod Wood and Sheila Ford-Hamp's assistant for the foreseeable future. It looks like, Mike, you had something to say there? Yeah, jump in there.
I just have to say it again, and I don't want to beat this horse to death, but how big it is to have somebody in that room that understands the game. And again, I want to say this again because this is really important to me, to ask the questions that Sheila and Rod weren't going to ask, not because they're dumb, because they don't know to ask those questions. And it's like the Lions have never really had anybody in the front office to do that. At least they haven't since Mayhew and one. So it's been a while. And obviously this was the group that hired, Matt Patricia. This was the group that fired Jim Caldwell and so to have somebody there ask those questions. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
It's going to be huge.
Someone that isn't Ernie Accorsi, essentially, right? Someone who knows the Lions, knows the culture, knows what they want here, and someone that isn't just kind of an old timer like Ernie Accorsi. And I don't want to, hammer that guy. He's a smart guy and he's well respected for a lot of reasons. But I think
if Gettleman loves him.
Gettleman loves him. I don't know if that's a positive or negative. Probably not great, but Giants are doing better. I don't know. Anyways,
he's got him hired twice.
The one thing I do want to address, I think one major concern that I think a lot of people have, and it's just that this is a symbolic thing. You're not giving him any necessary powers. He's not GM. He's not president. He's basically working under two people and saying they're dictating what he's doing, and it's a crowd pleaser. For Sheila Ford-Hamp to maybe just do something that's crowd pleasing at the top of her kind of reign, it's a smart move. Even if it's the right move, even if it's the wrong move, this is a move that's already been widely praised by just about everyone, and it's smart, right? It buys her some time too. Like, listen, I'm taking this seriously. I'm getting someone that you like inside the organization. Is there a concern, though, for you guys that maybe this is just kind of a symbolic thing, just kind of like hey, here's a guy you guys said you liked. I'm going to throw him in the organization. I'm not going to give him a ton of power or anything, but he's going to be there. And you guys like him, right? Do you guys have any concern whatsoever that might be what's going on here? Let's go to Jerry first.
No, I don't think it's symbolic. I feel like if this was a well-run, seasoned front office and they brought in a vet, let's say the Patriots bring in Jared Mayo or one of their former Patriots guys, that might sound symbolic because we know Belichick and those guys kind of know what they're doing. They don't really need the help. This is different. This is a new owner. This is in Rod Wood, someone that he's been around the Ford family, but it wasn't really for football as much. So it would make more sense of it being symbolic if the guys in charge had more experience, but they don't. Even though he doesn't have a ton of experience in this realm, he has football experience in general. So I don't really think it's symbolic. I don't think it's a move just to please the fans. I think it's Rod and Sheila being very extensive in this research, really wanting to nail it. And it just so happened to be a move that we appreciate as well. So I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, me neither. Obviously he's going to be, as they said, as Rod Wood said, he's going to be in on the head coaching interviews, the GM interviews. You don't bring in a guy who's just going to be a symbolic, thing, a show, just and put him in those important meetings. I think that this is just Sheila and Rod admitting, which is brave, by the way, that they need help. And they went out and they found people that they trust. And I think this is great.
Yeah, I mean, not only bringing people you trust, people that, like I said, are emotionally invested. And I'm with you guys. I think there needs to be at least a general concern, since it doesn't seem like his job title is really defined. I mean, it's very loose. It's just basically saying like, hey, you're going to do whatever we tell you to do, and who knows what that's actually going to be? Who knows?
So he's a servant.
Yeah, he's a servant. It's such
okay.
Will he be involved in football decisions? Will he be there? In Allen Park every single day? Will he be working with sponsorships? I think that's something that Wood kind of brought up that I thought was interesting. All that is kind of like the fact that it's all kind of vague, and it's a new position that doesn't really exist with a lot of teams, I think warrants at least some skepticism. But overall, I think you guys are right. I mean, you bring him full time, you involve him immediately on your GM and head coaching search. This is more than just, lip service or crowd pleasing. It's something more significant, and it's something that I think a lot of people agree with. That being, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. He had a pretty good gig at Fox. I don't think he would leave a good gig like that
to be a servant.
Just to be some random, just like a flunky with no type of thing going on. It's not a defined role, and it seemed like his role at Fox had been expanding. He was doing a lot of just Lions and preseason. Mm-hmm. Now you kind of see him on some different games. So, he kind of transitioned from a good gig. I don't think he would go over to a good gig just to be a figurehead or a spokesperson or symbolic for the fans.
Definitely.
And not just that, not just that, but Chris also mentioned in the press conference that he had other offers in the past, and he had talked to other teams. So he turned all those people down, and he turned out a great job at Fox to come here. So I don't think he comes here if it's not serious.
And we're going to jump a little bit more into that press conference in a minute here when we come back from our break. But before we do, I want to hit on some other news that the Lions just kind of like snuck in the back door of all of this. And that's that they're bringing in 3 more advisors for their general manager and head coach. Rod Graves, the former general manager of the Arizona Cardinals for a decade. He's also part of the Fritz Pollard Alliance, which helps with minority hires in the NFL. Mark Hollis, the former MSU athletic director, who apparently oversaw 19 coaching hires while he was there, not just with football, obviously. And then some guy named Barry Sanders is also going to be involved. I don't know if you guys heard of him. Let's give you quick reactions to that. Is there a guy in that trio that sticks out to you as like, that's a good get? Is the Barry Sanders... Can we probably admit the Barry Sanders thing is probably a little symbolic? Like that
one is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the symbolic one.
Yeah. Okay, cool. But yeah, is there a guy that you're like, wow, I'm glad they grabbed him in this coaching search, which is obviously going to be pretty important for this team?
I like the Graves guy from his Fritz Pollard connection. So, we're looking at all these potential options, and I'm kind of warming up to Rick Smith. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if they have some type of relationship, but the Fritz Pollard, I might be saying that name wrong. Yeah. I apologize. That organization is really big in terms of minority hires for NFL positions. And so there's a good chance that maybe this guy and Rick Smith have some type of connection. He's probably well-versed on all of the minority options, and that would include Robert Saleh as well. So his experience in the league, I'm kind of intrigued by that. I think he definitely will be playing more of a role. And like you said, Barry, he's kind of been a spokesperson for the Lions since he retired. It probably continues, but I think this guy Graves is going to actually be doing some work. And so, there are a few minority candidates that it seems like we may be interested in. And so he might have a connection with them. And particularly for me, a Rick Smith and Robert Saleh potential pairing just sounds intriguing to me.
I mean, really some of the top names, Eric Bieniemy, also a minority coach. Yeah. So kind of have someone that has the pulse of all those guys. Obviously a well-respected voice in the room. What about you, Mike? What do you think about those additions to the search?
I think they're both great. I mean, first off, with Rod Graves and Fritz Pollard, it's pretty cool to know that the Lions are not going to be one of the teams that need to be shoved into the Rooney Rule type thing. They're clearly going to be interviewing anybody, no matter who they are or color of their skin. So I mean that's pretty cool just right off the bat. But I really like this Mark Hollis hire because here's somebody who I mean his job as the
athletic director.
It's escaping me what he. Athletic director, thank you. His job as an athletic director at Michigan State was all about hiring coaches and putting the right people in the right situations. So to get a guy like that who who can sort of have that eye for talent and have that eye for what you need in a coach to lead men on the field is I think it's really big. I just love really all of these. Even Barry Sanders is great. I mean, it's pretty clear they're doing their due diligence from every angle, and that is just something it feels like the Lions have never done before.
Yeah, and that was going to be my point, is that you compare this GM search to 5 years ago already, where, you know, Martha Firestone Ford, probably decided, you know what, this is in over my head. Let me just go get Ernie Accorsi, and he can act as the team owner. He goes out, interviews 3 people, one of them an internal candidate, and then says, you know what, Bob Quinn had the best interview I've ever seen. Let's just do that. That's such a minimalist approach to everything. And now you already have the Lions with basically 4 advisors, these 3 plus Spielman. You have 3 interviews already done with internal candidates. They've already been linked to 2 guys in Jerry Reese and the aforementioned Rick Smith. Plus, you're probably going to interview more guys once the season's over. Like, this all feels like an actual well thought out plan, a very thorough job done by Sheila Ford Hamp. And does that mean they eventually hire the right person? No, not necessarily, but it feels like they're at least tapping the well. They're at least going through all the correct motions. And yes, I know we said a lot of this when they hired Ernie Accorsi, like, oh yeah, of course get Ernie Accorsi. He's a brilliant mind. He's a well-respected guy. But this is so much more, it feels like. There's so many more people in the room, and sure, it could be a little bit too many cooks in the kitchen type of situation, but I'd rather them be overly thorough than underly thorough.
Due diligence, man.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No
Is
question.
it wrong to maybe speculate that if the Lions had this team in place when they hired Bob Quinn, that they wouldn't have hired Bob Quinn? I mean, I don't think it's too crazy because, again, man, I go back to those questions. I feel like if somebody was there to ask Bob Quinn some questions that nobody asked him, maybe they would have found out that he wasn't that great of a hire. I don't know. I digress.
Yeah, I mean, you can never really know, but either way, it does feel like they're going to interview more people. They're gonna see what they could get and what they should get and what they maybe should stay away from. And the fact that they got Spielman and Barry in there, I mean, and this is something we'll talk about in a minute. The Lions culture. They want to establish whatever the Lions culture is, and so they have 2 prominent people that care about Lions culture there in the front office. So when we come back, we are going to talk about that press conference. We're going to talk about what Chris Spielman had to say, what Rod Wood had to say about their future roles, about what the general manager search is going to look like, and what Spielman's role is going to be. So we'll talk more about that when we come back on the POD Emergency Podcast. All right. Real quick, let's talk to chat. We got 93 people in here from Twitch. We got another 70 from YouTube. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I can see a lot of you are very excited, and we're excited too, obviously. Ryan the Lion says, I'm 100% sure the Lions are getting Robert Saleh and Ed Dodds, or Rick Smith will be the GM. I think if that happens, there are going to be a lot of happy people in Detroit.
Yeah, the approval rate to be high on that.
Yeah. SC Ghost says, if it was Symbolic, I don't think Spielman would have been brought on full-time. That's a good point. Servant leadership is a thing he was trying to express, something I've heard a lot from my military life, and he did bring up military as well. It's a style of leadership that has been very popular amongst both officer and enlisted leaders. Good point. Lions Forest, popular guy here on our Twitch channel. Good to see you again. Bieniemy and Saleh are the only 2 head coaches I'd like, says, I don't know how to pronounce that. Fusserman, I'll say. Better to have people that are invested in the decision instead of washing hands.
Yeah.
Yep. Rick Smith is a smart GM. Even if his later round picks may be kind of bad, there's very high chance that could be based on either the people in the room and he could learn from his mistakes. I'll take Rick Smith in a heartbeat, says SC Ghost. I'm definitely warming up to him. And if you haven't read the Athletic piece on him about what he did after he stepped down from that job in Houston, it's a fantastic piece. All right. Let's see. Anything else from chat here? Want to make sure I'm including you YouTubers. I think Barry is Symbolic, but not Spielman, says Steve-O. Yep. Can we get a Texans fans in here for a podcast to talk about Rick Smith? I'm working on that, Troy Barnes. I've reached out to 2 beat writers. I reached out to the writer of that Athletic article. I haven't heard back from him. And I reached out to John McClain, the longtime beat writer for the Houston Chronicle. I think he's been on the beat for like 35 years. So hoping to hear back from him as well. If not, we might go the fan route. But
the guy from the Nakatomi Plaza?
No,
thing?
not that John McClain. Okay. Let's get back into it, guys. We'll talk about the presser. Let me pull up my notes here. And we are back with our midweek emergency podcast because Chris Spielman has been hired by the Detroit Lions as a special assistant to chairman, president, and CEO, which basically means he's just working right under Sheila Ford Hamp and Rod Wood. So after it was announced, about an hour and a half after the news was announced, the Lions decided to put both Rod Wood and Chris Spielman in front of the virtual podium, let's call it, in a Zoom meeting with local media. Thankfully, that was also broadcast live to fans because I think that was a great opportunity for fans to get all excited and watch as their new I don't even know what to call him. I almost called him like assistant GM, but that might be overstating his role. We'll see. Let's get to you guys' first reaction. The 2 spoke for about 30 minutes, went over a lot of different topics spanning from Matthew Stafford to culture to what the role will be to whether or not he had any interest in being a GM. Let's go to Mike first. What were your kind of standouts, your takeaways, let's say, from Spielman's first presser?
Well, first off, you brought up the whole GM thing, and obviously we had Herman Moore on our Man Coverage podcast a couple weeks back, and he was very, very behind the idea of Chris being the new GM, and that's something that's been sort of flying around ever since then. And he somehow it got back to him, and he came out and said he doesn't want to be a GM, and made it seem like he never wants to be a GM. So I guess we can all wipe that from our idea bank because it's apparently never going to happen. But the other thing that really stood out to me, the thing I think maybe that stood out the most was that it's pretty clear that they are very invested in the Detroit Lions. They love the team. They love the city. I know that usually you hear people just say that sort of thing, but Chris has never left, as far as I know. Barry's never left. Sheila obviously loves the city, loves the team. They're really, really getting high on this whole Detroit culture thing and how much they care about the team. And I think that's going to speak a lot into how much due diligence and how much they put into the hiring process.
What about you, Jerry? What were your thoughts on his first presser?
I like a lot that he had to say. A few things that stood out. One was how he's been preparing for this type of role. So they asked him, hey, do you want to be a GM? He said, not necessarily. I just love football. So, he does these gigs for Fox, and he's just been in NFL circles now for 3 decades, even just around football, even longer than that because of his dad being a coach. And then obviously his brother is the GM, and I think a pretty good GM there with Minnesota.
Yep.
He's been around football from relatives and associates, and how he said he takes notes. He asks questions. If it's things that he doesn't agree with, he doesn't just throw it away. He kind of looks into it a little bit more to see if maybe his thinking on the philosophy or something is off. And so I don't think he's one of these out of touch athletes that's, been away from the game. He hasn't played in many years. So maybe he wants some old school smash mouth that isn't going to translate. He really loves the game of football. He talked about his notes and the things that he does research on. So that stood out to me. It made me feel real comfortable that it's not just a figurehead coming in because he used to be a Lion. This is someone that's been prepared. And I do think his brother, it doesn't necessarily mean he will be good in the front office, but I do kind of like the fact that it is in his bloodline and his family. We see, we see Shanahan and his son now doing pretty good. You got the LaFleur brothers. So sometimes those family trees and those different traits do translate. And so me being a big fan of his brother, Rick, kind of makes me feel happy that he's in our front office now and Chris.
Yeah. And I think maybe the most impressive thing I got from his press conference was when he started talking about leadership. And part of it plays into what he also said about, being a GM. He said, I don't think I could do that. I don't think I'm qualified. And him being able to kind of be humble enough to admit that's just not for me right now. I don't have that in me. It kind of goes right into what he said about leadership. And it was all about kind of like not being that smartest guy in the room that I think a lot of people thought of Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. I'm going to read a quote directly. He says, and he said he pulled it kind of from a military background in that they're pretty good at everything, but they're not afraid to hire people that are great around them at one particular skill or whatever that is. They don't feel threatened. And the other thing that good leaders do, in my opinion, you hire people to do the job and then you let them do that job. You don't get in the way. You delegate. You essentially delegate and you say, I can work with these people. I can trust these people, and don't let egos into it. And so, who knows if that was something that was actually going on in Detroit, but I really, that answer really stuck with me. It's something that I think Jim Caldwell would say, something that was just like, don't let egos get into it. Let people be people. And that's something I want in terms of someone that's, if you're looking for a leader, if someone is hiring a leader, those are the kind of installments that I want in their brain. They're getting a guy who's not going to be ego driven, who's not going to be afraid to delegate, who's not going to be afraid to get smart people around him and feel threatened about their job. And so to have that guy as a leading voice now in this GM search is promising. It's hopeful. And I don't think I had necessarily a lot of hope about this GM search until maybe even today.
Yeah, just hearing him talk about his philosophies, that's when I started to get really comfortable. When he started getting into the leadership stuff and some of that military background type thing, I mean, it was hard not to be impressed. I was taking notes on the presser, and I had to sit back, and I totally stopped tweeting because I was just kind of in awe of everything that he was saying, because you don't hear that sort of thing. And we do come from the last 3 years, somewhat of a program where there was some of those rumors out there that Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia couldn't agree with each other on who to pick and who to sign or what have you, who to cut. So if the new setup is to, hey, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to hire you, I know you can take care of it, I am here if you want to ask me questions. If that's the way that's going to go, then man, I feel way more comfortable. Just like you said, Jeremy, way more comfortable than I had before.
Is there anything that you guys wish he would have said, or maybe something that you heard and you were just like, I don't know about that? I mean, there has to be kind of a push and pull here. He probably didn't, get an A+ in his press conference if we're going to grade it like that one. I can't remember what some columnist graded. I think it was Bob Quinn's first press conference or something crazy like that. But was there any reservations that you came away with? Like, I wish he would have said that, or I'm not sure if that's the right way to go about this search. Anything that you guys had reservations about?
I didn't have any issues with anything he said, but what I'll say is, because to me, he hit it out the park. Everything he said was great. He lived up to what you wanted to hear. But that doesn't always equate to him being successful on the job. So, you get excited about what he said, but you still want to temper your expectations. This doesn't automatically mean he's the best person for this job. This doesn't mean he's going to be the one to help find the right head coach and GM. But as far as what he actually said, I don't really have any issues with anything. Rod, right at the beginning of the press conference, already mentioned they weren't going to talk too much about potential candidates. And that makes sense. We would love for them to speak on some of these guys, but it's not realistic. It's not advantageous for them to do so. But I like everything he said. I just don't want to get too excited because there is still no guarantees.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, to piggyback on what Jerry said, this is no guarantee that it's going to work, right? It could fail just as badly as everything else has failed. But I generally liked everything that he had to say. There were some corporate speak moments where it was kind of like, trying to avoid things like the Matthew Stafford stuff, even though he did say that Matthew was a, quote, tough ass. Damn right he's tough ass. Other than that, there was some corporate speak stuff and some sort of dodginess that I never care for with anybody, but it was nothing too crazy.
Yeah, I guess I didn't have too many, and I'm going to be a little nitpicky here just so that we have a little bit of balance here. it just seemed like a lot of the talk was like about building a culture here in Detroit. And I'll be honest, I don't even know what that means. And you got pushed a little bit, like, what defines the Detroit Lions culture? And, Rod and Spielman kind of pulled the old, like, we have a blue collar mentality, and we got a winner's mentality, and we got to never give up when we're on the field. And it's just like, okay, I mean, just say you want to build a winner. I don't care about culture, because culture just naturally comes with winning. And part of me, there's a little push and pull here, because I think about some of like the standard of great organizations in the NFL, the Steelers, the Packers, even the Bears and Vikings a little bit. Like, they have an identity. The Bears have had a stifling defense for decades, and the Packers have had a franchise quarterback, Hall of Fame quarterback for decades, and the Steelers have had a defense for decades. And I'd love for the Lions to have some of that identity. I don't think any of it can come without winning, so I don't really care about building a culture. I'd rather just build the wins. But at the same time, like, bringing in a guy like Spielman, bringing in a guy like Barry into the mix, like, well, okay, those guys kind of had a culture here in the 90s. Like, there was something to those teams. Those teams made the playoffs a hell of a lot more than these ones do, so maybe there's something to it. It all felt a little bit like buzzworthy, like you guys were kind of saying. And then the other thing is just, and I hate to always kind of bring it back to Rod Wood, but I just like it. I was hoping when I first heard Chris Spielman was bringing in, that basically he was that link between the football side and the business side. It seems to me like that's not necessarily what's happening. I think it's more Spielman the way Rod Wood put it, I'll read his direct quote. I don't think it will have that much of an impact on my role, other than I have a partner that is going to leverage my time and I think will be around the organization in every way possible. Basically saying he'll give me some extra time. He'll do what I would have done and, under my orders, but essentially I'm still going to be that liaison both from the business and football side. And so it's not exactly what I wanted. And listen, I'm an adult. I don't need to get every single thing that I want. But at the same time, I kind of wished when I heard Chris Spielman's first name, like, there's the football guy. There's the football guy that's going to take care of the football side. Rod Wood will go back to the business side. They'll have a little bit of overlap, but it seems to me this is still, he's an underling of Rod Wood who is still kind of balancing both sides. Am I reading that right, or do you guys kind of see it in a different way?
I don't know, man. I kind of see it as the way that you think it should be. When that was the first thing that came to my mind when they hired Chris Spielman, was like, okay, that's the football guy. And I don't think Rod really said anything, in my opinion, that made me feel otherwise. I mean, there was some uncertainty as to what the structure of everything was going to be and who was going to answer to who and all that, which is, I mean, it's fine. This hire just happened, a few hours ago.
Right.
So, but yeah, the only way I looked at it was, this is the football guy. He's going to be in the head coaching and GM interviews. I mean, he's going to be there to help make decisions. So I don't think that it's I don't think Rod Wood's opinion is going to matter as much, because obviously, like I said, they hired these guys because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I kind of got the feeling that kind of similar to Jeremy, when I first saw Spielman, I kind of was like, oh, good, like Rod can kind of go back to being, well, I don't want to say the forged servant, but I can't think of a better word. But he could kind of step away from Detroit Lions things a little bit, or just stick to things like jerseys and ticket sales. Maybe work on getting Calvin Johnson paid. But when it comes to like football things, personnel, he would step down. But after listening to the press conference, I don't think he is. I just feel like Chris is there and he's going to help, but Rod is still very much going to be involved with football things. They may lean heavily on him. They may defer to him, but Rod can still kind of pull that card out and say, hey, I'm still at the top of the chain, and, maybe a financial reason or whatever. So, yeah, I was hoping Chris maybe got a little bit more, of a role. And I don't know, am I getting just caught up? Because it's something about him not getting the actual title. It did bother me a little bit. Like, call him the VP or something. It was just kind of, he'll have a prominent role, but like, what exactly is it? We're still kind of grasping at that.
Yeah. I think the important thing overall, just to note though, is like, at least he now has like a voice in his ear, right? At least there's someone there telling him, well, this isn't how I would do things. It's still going to be Rod Wood calling the shots ultimately, but he's got someone valuable, someone that cares about the organization, someone that has a brother that knows how to run an organization, and someone who's been surrounded by football for the past 40 years of his life, right there telling him what he sees and how he would potentially do things. And that's important. That's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, because last time it was just Okorsi for a period of time. And then we bring in Quinn. Of course, he's gone. He doesn't care what happens at that point. He's got one of the guys that he recommended in. There was really no check and balance.
Yeah, I mean, who was checking in on Quinn?
Yeah, so
Rod Wood.
We kind of got someone now,
exactly,
a little bit more involved in that standpoint. So that is good. I'm sorry, I just said standpoint. I guess I missed Matt Patricia a little bit. Promise not to say that again.
Oh, you just got to get better, man. You got to work better. You got to get coach better. It's all right. You'll be okay.
All right, let's close this out really quick, and let's just give. I mean, it's crude, and it's we're all probably in the same mode. We're like, well, let's just wait and see where this goes, but let's throw a grade on it. What the hell? It's a nice way to cap things off. Your grade on. Let's just throw all the moves together today. The Chris Spielman, Barry Sanders, all of the people now involved in the GM and coaching search that have been announced. How are you feeling today compared to yesterday?
I'm putting an A on it. Yep, I'm doing it. I go right out there and put an A on it. You guys know me. Look, man, this is the most, like I said, this is the most they have ever done to go out and get the right candidate. They are putting in the work right now. Whether it works out or not, we don't know. But they're doing all the right things in terms of trying to find the right people. And I don't see how you can give them anything less than an A on that.
Fair enough.
Let's see. Barry Sanders, I love him. Whether it's symbolic or real or imagine, just seeing his name brings a smile to my face. So that's good. This Rod Graves guy, I like it. The whole Fritz Pollard connection, I'm down with that. I love, the whole thing with that is just giving everyone a fair shake, right? And so I love that aspect that he's brought in. It may be some connection to a few of the candidates that I like, and Sala and Rick Smith. So that's cool. And then Chris Spielman, he's stepping in. He said all the right things. He seems passionate. I love someone with a vested interest. So he has a vested interest. A, he has the history with the Lions, but B, he's working for them now. He's going to be here. And that gives Sheila and Rod an extra voice, a little bit less input with football decisions. I'm going with the A, man. Call it Kool-Aid, call it what you want, but I'm giving it an A.
I'll be the devil's advocate here, and I'll say A- because I'm very excited about it. I've had my issues with Chris Spielman in the booth, but I can't ignore his fire. I can't ignore his emotion. I can't ignore the fact that he's been around football and talked to football minds for the past 20 years. One thing that I'd even mention that I thought was one of the most interesting part of his pressers is what he said about Sheila Ford Hamp and how she talked to him and convinced him to take this job and made him want to run through the hotel room door in Cincinnati. And I mean, that's promising, right? A guy. And,
I like that.
Maybe again, that's just lip service, but I almost said Rick Spielman. Chris Spielman isn't one to really BS a lot. So for him to say like Sheila's all in on this and excited, I'm willing to believe him on that. And so overall, there's more voices in here for the Lions to make an educated decision. Maybe they're suffering from a little bit of too many cooks in the kitchen situation, both now and going forward with maybe Rod Wood and Chris Spielman potentially butting heads. I mean, this is, again, all speculation. We don't really know how the whole organization thing will stand out, which maybe feeds into my anxiety a little bit. But in general, there's a path now. There appears to be a plan in place, which is really all I was looking for when the Lions eventually did fire Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. And so it feels like there's some sort of semblance to what they're trying to build here. And that's all I want. And that's why I'm happy today. And that's why I'll give it an A-, but like a 92%. So a high A-, not like an 80, 91, 90, 91. So, all right. And with that, we're going to end our emergency podcast. I want to thank Mike Payton at POD_Payton for joining us. Jerry Mallory at Jerry Mallory NFL on Twitter. Both valued members of the Pride of Detroit community. And I want to thank you all for listening. So until next time, we'll have a man coverage later this week. It's going to be a little bit delayed because of this, but we'll have it later in this week. But until then, it's chaos. Be kind. All right, we're gonna stick around. I'm gonna stick around really quick for talking with our live community here. If you guys got to go, feel free to go. But before you do, there was someone that asked, Go Lions asked, "What up, Doe? Where can I get that gray Lions hat?"
I've got to find out. My
man.
wife bought this for me as a gift. I don't know where she got it from. Probably Lids or something. But
hats just so happen to be my specialty.
That's true.
So yeah, Mike might know.
And, yes. That hat was part of the 2019 season release. Unfortunately, you're going to have a really hard time finding it outside of maybe like eBay. Those hats are no longer, they don't exist anymore.
Dang.
They're not making them anymore. But you could find it if you go to
stop
eBay.
Wearing it, get it cleaned and dust it off. It's a collector's item, huh?
Mike, I feel like at some point you're going to be a reality show host of like whatever the what is it that rodeo? No, when they're like they're looking at Antique Roadshow.
Antique Roadshow.
You're gonna be the Antiques Roadshow of sports hats. The fact that you could immediately tell the year and when that came out,
right?
Amazing to me. And you can tell here from the stitching, it actually comes from.
I mean, I have a very, very big selection of hats. You can ask my wife; she hates it because I leave them everywhere. But I mean, if you guys follow me on Twitter, you know I do hat drops all the time because some people have shoes, I have hats. That's my thing.
Really quick, want to catch up on alerts too. Benny, thank you for the follow on Twitch. Defiant Agency 9, thank you for the one host. Jesse Lopez on YouTube, thank you for the subscription. And then don't forget, our good friend Joshua, thank you for the 8 months subscribing to our Twitch channel. You're amazing. We love you, buddy. Let's see. Any other questions we got here? Saleh seems even more perfect for head coach, though Michigan roots with Spielman there now. Potentially. I mean, you get a lot of people there inside the organization that suddenly care about the Lions a lot.
Oh, yeah.
How Am I Not Myself says you should have a Lions hat episode with Mike. Yeah, maybe just like a video Twitch episode where you're just going through each hat.
Maybe I'll set up a Periscope on my Twitter and I'll go through all the hats.
There you go.
If anybody would want to watch that, I'll do it.
Let's see. Anything else? So the evidence is other people with president title make decisions, so therefore what is? No, not necessarily. Listen, from what I hear within the organization, at least with how the place has been run for the past 5 years, Wood has had his fingerprints all over everything. And he came out today and said he doesn't view his role with the team will change. He'll just have more time to delegate, essentially. So that's what I'm basing it off of, not just because he's team president, because I've heard from people within the organization. He's touching everything. He's licking his hands and putting it on everything, saying, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. So we'll see. Hopefully I'm wrong. Do you think the Lions...
Again,
Whoops.
I was going to say, again, I just think this is a big show of that he has realized that he doesn't know anything about football, and he went out and got help. Well, I still think he's going to touch everything. He's going to touch everything with all these other guys who are also going to touch everything.
That's fair. I mean, when he first came and it was like, okay, he's part of the cheerleaders and we changed our uniforms. It was like,
it's got a big screen.
Something that one of us would do,
Right.
We love the Lions and we're invested, but he was like, just from that standpoint, I said standpoint. I said standpoint again. That's bad. Well, he's from that aspect. But now, as the years progressed, like you said, we saw he was like kind of like a football operations guy, and that I never really liked that or cared for. He didn't have the resume for it.
Let me make it really simple. Why was it him instead of Sheila Ford Hamp in the press conference today?
Yeah,
because he wants his hands on it. Like he wants to be like, Chris Spielman's me. I did that. Right? I mean, there's really no reason for him to be there. I think more people would rather hear. What?
He made a point to mention that too at the beginning, Rod. He said, hey, when I called Chris and then I mentioned it to Sheila that we should talk to him, it was kind of like, I don't know if that was intentional or, whatever, but that was brought up that he kind of mentioned he was the one that reached out to Chris.
Yeah.
And kind of got him in. And then Sheila approved it, but he kind of facilitated things.
Right. Hold on one second.
The Fords have always been, pretty private. So I think it's probably not out of the question. Oh gosh, it's probably not out of the question that Rod's just a proxy.
Sure,
That's true.
That's a good point. But yeah, from what I understand, he likes the limelight a little bit. Let's just put it that way. Did Rod Wood approve of this mustache? He has no litigation here. He has no power when it comes to my upper lip. This is all me.
Hey Jeremy, can you ask that dog to sit up? It's really slouching.
Is he slouching
right
again?
Yeah, I mean,
don't
come
feel
on,
like
just
respect.
be
Little
professional.
professional.
From that
Come on now.
standpoint,
Be professional. Respect the
conducting business
process.
here.
All right.
All right. I think we're probably gonna close it out. Thank you for the compliments about my mustache. By the way, in case you are unaware of what we're doing with the mustache, it started out as a Movember thing. We're extending it to December. If we get 100 gifted subs by people that want me to shave it, I will shave it immediately. But you also have to save it every Sunday. So last Sunday we saved it because we got 10 gifted subs on Twitch. This upcoming Sunday after the Titans game, we'll need to hit 20 gifted subs to save it. Otherwise, I will shave it. So it's up to you to save it.
Someone called you Jeremy Ron.
Yeah, I've had a lot of Ron Jeremy. I've had a lot of Jeremy Ron Burgundy. I've had Ron Jeremy Burgundy. I've had Ron Swanson, Flanders,
Hall and Oates.
Hall and Oates. Which one has it? Hall or Oates?
I don't know. I think it's Oates. I'm pretty sure it's Oates.
But yeah, it's something, that's for sure. Anyways, I think we're gonna end it there since we always got to end it on mustache talk, I guess. But yeah, if you aren't already, make sure you're following these two, by the way, Jerry Mallory, NFL, and POD_Peyton. Mike put out a really good article today about Matthew Stafford's legacy and whether he's going to come or go sometime soon. Check that out. I don't think I got anything else to say. You guys got anything else to say before we go?
That's it.
All right, guys.
Chatting with you guys. Good day for Lions fans.
A day that will live in history? Maybe?
Infamy one way or the other. Infamy
Hopefully
one way
not
or
infamy.
The other.
Infamy usually implies bad things, but
okay.
We'll see. You never know. But thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll be back at the latest on Saturday. I don't know if we're going to do a midweek podcast. If I can't hook one of those Texans guests, might be tough to get someone else on short notice. So we'll see. So at the very latest, Madden Sim on Saturday, and then Sunday, Save the Stash, Titans, Lions recap, all that fun stuff. But until then, we'll see you guys later.